welcome here to an all-new segment on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside the Dan Tortora Broadcast Media family. It is entitled NeapoliDANS. And why? Because we're both Italian, both named Dan, and of course I am here with Dan Villari, myself Dan Tortora, aka DT, and like I said, we'll be bringing you episodes every other Wednesday leading up from the end of the Syracuse football season into the NFL draft. I am here with Syracuse Orange tight end, quarterback, tight end, then quarterback, then tight end, but kind of a running back, but then also a quarterback again. So we got a lot to talk about with Dan Villari, the Swiss Army knife for the NFL. And each episode will have its own title, just like you have on any television show. Today's episode, the inaugural episode of NeapoliDANS, is going to be titled From Michigan to Syracuse with Love. And that's because that's where Dan Villari came in the transfer world. First and foremost, Mr. Villari, as we start off this NeapoliDAN journey together, thanks for doing it and welcome to the show.
Good morning, my brother. Thank you for having me, man. It's a blessing and an honor.
Well, I appreciate it, and you already know. So, as we're here with NeapoliDANS, giving you the story of Dan Villari throughout these upcoming months, this episode From Michigan to Syracuse with Love, we're going to start exactly there. Bring me into your recruitment out of high school that brought you to the Michigan Wolverines. Let everybody know where you grew up, where you went to school, and how you ended up choosing Michigan.
So I grew up in Long Island, Massapequa. Um, Recruitment was slow. It was real slow. Junior year, we went undefeated. I broke my shoulder in the state championship game. We lost that game. But after that season, the recruitment started to get serious, and I got tons and tons of FCS offers. And so, that was never my vision. That was never my goal, but I was still entertaining it. And so that summer I just went to work. I was like, I'm getting a Power Five offer. Like this has been my dream since I was 6 years old to get one of these big time offers. So after my senior year, we went undefeated, 12-0, won the Long Island Championship. It was actually like a few weeks before the Long Island Championship, and my head coach came up to me. He's like, Dan, I got an interesting voicemail today from Jim Harbaugh. And I was like, really? And he was like, yeah, it's that's important. I should probably call him back, right? I was like, yeah, please call him back. And so yeah, they showed interest. They were showing interest towards the end of the season. And then that's when, Rutgers was starting to talk to me, Virginia Tech, Pitt, some of these big time schools. And it wasn't until like playoffs, literally late November, December, January, where these schools were looking at me like right before signing day. So it's a crazy story. Um, Michigan they were trying to get CJ Stroud because their quarterback JD Johnson, this is all like a wild story, but JD Johnson had to medically retire, so they needed a quarterback for their class.
Yeah.
So they were like recruiting me a little bit. They really wanted me to be a walk-on because they wanted CJ to sign. So the day CJ committed to Ohio State, they gave me the offer. And it was kind of crazy. They said, if CJ commits, we still want you to come be a walk-on. And I was like, thank you very much, but I can't, I can't be a walk-on, we don't want to do that. We can't afford that for real. But so, CJ signs to Ohio State. They offered me on signing day, literally the morning of. I was in my car getting lunch, about to go get lunch, and he called me. I had one of my best friends in the car with me, and I committed on the spot with my friend in the car. And then I end up going to Michigan and being best friends with the kid JD Johnson, who medically retired. And I pretty much took his place, and he hated me at first for it. He didn't really like me because obviously that's a really tough thing for him. But
Mm-hmm.
that's like my best friend for life now.
So, how did you know that the offer that they had for you was something that could go away if CJ Stroud signed with Michigan and not with Ohio State? How did you find that out?
Well, he told me straight up. He said, if CJ commits, he's going to be our quarterback for the 2020 class, but we want you to come walk on. And I said thank you very much, but I probably would go somewhere else if that's the case.
So, when you say he, are you talking about Jim Harbaugh?
This was Ben McDaniels telling me
Ben.
this, the quarterback coach.
So, Ben McDaniels, is he the one that called you on signing day on that morning and
Yeah.
said, like, hey, CJ's not coming. You still want. I mean, how did he say it to you on signing day?
He said he said, "Look, the kid didn't take his offer, and the offer's all yours. We don't want anyone else besides, after CJ, we just want you. We don't want anyone else." And I was like, "Let's do it. It's a dream come true." I had other school. I literally had Virginia Tech and Pitt trying to get on the phone with me that day because they wanted me to take a visit, and I just committed to Michigan on the spot and said, like, "Look, I just committed. That's all I need." Like, I just took it.
So, what made you want to go to Michigan when you're in this situation of, well, we want you, but we want CJ, and if CJ Stroud comes here, we want you to walk on. Why did you keep talking to Michigan instead of just saying, you know what? I don't want to wait for all of that. I'm just going to go to Virginia Tech. I'm going to go to Pitt. They didn't tell me that there's a quarterback they're waiting on besides me. What made you stay in touch with Michigan?
Well, number one, they were recruiting me pretty good, and they came to my school before this. They didn't offer me, but they came to my school and watched me throw, and I threw in my gym in front of Jim Harbaugh, Josh Gaddis, the whole staff, and I had a pretty good workout. And they just said, we're really that was before they even offered me. But I pretty much just saw it as a great opportunity. I'd be the only quarterback in that class to commit there.
Yeah.
So I saw it as an unbelievable opportunity. I loved the campus when I went there. Um, it was just really, it was big time ball, and that's all I ever dreamed to do is just play on the biggest stage with the best talent.
So you go to Michigan. They say to so on signing day they call you, and you say, "Yeah, let's do it." Who are you in the car with?
My buddy Joe Cavalier, he's still my good friend to this day.
So you're there with Joe. Do you have it on like hands free? And this is on National Signing Day.
Yes.
So you're driving. You get a call from Coach McDaniel's. You got it on. You both can hear it, and they say, "Hey, we want you to come." And you say, "Yeah," and then they say, "Okay, you gotta like sign a sheet of paper and sign." Like, how did that day all kind of like once you said, "Yeah, I'll do it"? How did National Signing Day, the rest of the day, go for you when you have to make everything official?
We pretty much, I guess CJ committed that morning, and that we were all waiting on it, like waiting for it to happen.
Yeah.
And then once it happened, he called me around lunchtime, and then I committed. And then I think told everybody. Everybody was excited. We went to my house, all my friends, bunch of family, and we signed the papers in my kitchen on my kitchen counter. I think we must have. I forgot how we did that, but we took like pictures of me in the hat and the gear on, and we announced it. I think you sign over. I think you could sign over like a digital copy.
Yeah. Yeah. It used to be that you had to fax over a physically signed thing. Now you could
Yeah.
probably e sign. But so
Right.
so you sign on, you go to Michigan. How did JD going from, like you said, how did he go from hating you for taking the spot, which wasn't your fault, he had to medically redshirt, but how did he go from hating you to being one of your best friends?
It's so funny. He told me once that he watched my highlights and he was like, "This kid sucks." Like he told me straight up. It's just because he was just like mad about his whole situation. But what happened was I met him, and we're both competitive guys. Like he can still rip it. So we would throw a lot together, and he just started to like me, and we started to hang out. He liked how goofy I was, and we just hit it off, and it was just, I don't know how to explain it. It's just when you just when you and a friend just connect, and then it's just from there you just can't stop hanging out with the dude.
Yeah.
Like that's what it was. And then we end up rooming together in the dorms. Our second year, Coach Harbaugh put us back in the dorms because during COVID we weren't there. So once we went back to the dorms, I was like, JD, we got to be roommates. And then we were roommates, and I just remember every night we would go outside and just throw for hours and just talk and BS. And yeah, it's my best friend for real.
So you go to Michigan, you have this connection with JD. In your freshman year at Michigan, it's COVID, it's 2020. The Big Ten says they're not going to play. Then they decide almost halfway through the college football season that they are going to play. You didn't appear in any games, but because you were on campus and because you were a student athlete at the time, you gained that free COVID year. So it
Yeah.
wasn't even your redshirt year in 2020 because you essentially had 4 years. I mean, you had the bonus. You could still redshirt after 2020 because it didn't count against you. So bring me into that weird world of here I go to college, I leave Long Island, I go out to Michigan, there's a pandemic, I'm not playing, but it doesn't count against anything. So I'm here, but I essentially it's almost like I'm not here. So what was that whole season like to watch other conferences, other teams play? The Big Ten says they're not gonna. You're sitting in your dorm room. Then they say they are. Now you got to start practicing again. What was going on at Michigan during this COVID time? Were you practicing?
You know,
I mean, what was happening?
I actually, when I first got there in the summer, I took a COVID test and tested positive.
Okay.
And they put me in like a like a miserable place. So and they said you have to quarantine for 2 weeks. So I actually got in the car with my dad and drove back home 13 hours. And so, my report date was postponed. So that was like the first thing I had to deal with, which was crazy. So then I went back, and I actually yeah, it was wild. I mean, we were wearing masks under our helmets, and it was just on and off. We didn't know if the season was going to happen. And then, I'm still a freshman just trying to figure everything out. It was really hard because, being a freshman at a big time program is hard enough.
Yeah.
But with, the campus shut down and nothing to do, like it was real depressing. I'm not gonna lie. It was hard seeing my friends back home just having a blast over the summer, and I'm just like
Yeah.
stuck in a little hotel room, like quarantining, and it was really rough. But actually, people don't know I was supposed to start against Maryland and Ohio State because, and this is a true story, because it was like Joe Milton had COVID, Cade McNamara was hurt, like I was the only guy available, and I was in practice getting reps with the ones, and Josh Gaddis was my offensive coordinator, and then both those games ended up getting canceled because we didn't have enough. Like everyone was getting COVID.
So you're on the same roster with Joe Milton and, like you said, Cade McNamara. And if those games had stayed, because we know that the Big Ten trying to put a season together and all of that. If those games didn't get canceled, you would have been the starting quarterback of the Michigan Wolverines.
Yeah, yeah, I was the only guy, available.
So I
So
mean, how did going through practicing with the ones, having all those reps, having all that time, working with Josh Gaddis, and then how did you find out like we're not, because I mean you think about your weird world of we want you, but we want CJ more, but if he doesn't come, then you can get the scholarship. Then he doesn't go, he goes to Ohio State, you get the scholarship, you go to campus, you get COVID right away, they put you in a place you don't want to be in, You drive 13 hours back to Long Island. You come back to campus. You got the mask on. You're practicing with that. You're a freshman. You're trying to get comfortable in this world, on top of the fact that this world has changed during the pandemic. So you're going through a new thing while everybody's going through a very weird and unique thing. Then you become the starting quarterback. Then they don't play those games. I mean, this has to be one of the strangest stories of recruitment, and you lived it.
Lived it. My whole career was just up and down, extremely crazy. But yeah, I was taking reps. We were running flea flickers, we were doing crazy stuff, and we were gonna do wildcat. Yeah, and I was like, this is crazy, but you know, leading up to those games, they were canceled both times.
So, was your intent to always be a quarterback? Because you went to Michigan, you were under quarterback, but you talked about, hey, if we had played these games and I started for Michigan against Maryland and Ohio State, we were going to do flea flickers and, wildcat and whatnot. So, were you always looked at as a running quarterback, kind of like the Tebow esque of, we're going to bring you in here and you're going to be an extra running back and you'll throw at times? I mean, how did they look at you at Michigan? Was it to be a true quarterback, or was it to be a quarterback for different formations and specific sets?
No, it was definitely to be a true quarterback. It was definitely. But once I got on campus and I was practicing, they saw, kind of like the Tebow, toughness. I love to run. I was a hard runner, athletic. So then they start to plug in, certain plays and schemes that help me succeed. Because drop back wasn't something that I did a lot growing up. Like we threw the ball 3 times a game in high school because I would just run and score. So we didn't have to throw that much. So I didn't have much experience dropping back and reading coverage.
So, I mean, when you look back on it now, do you would you have rather done that, or the Villari that we've seen that is in a formation where you're going to be running the ball a lot of the time and you've done it successfully? That's what you did in high school. That's what they saw in you in Michigan. They eventually brought you out to do that at Syracuse. Do you ever think, hey, I want to go back and I want to be a pocket passer, or I wanted to work a little bit more about my presence in the pocket and throwing the ball down the field? What can you say to that effect? Because a lot of people that know you under center consider you a running back in a way. So how do you look at it?
No, yeah, I absolutely wanted to be a pocket passer, like the next Tom Brady, the next Aaron Rodgers. Like that was my dream. I think if I had more years developing as a pocket passer, I think I definitely could have done it at a high level. But, everything happens for a reason. God didn't want me to be a quarterback pocket passer, and here we are. So I just I was bitter about it, but
Yeah.
definitely didn't take much time. It didn't take too long to accept it and just thrive.
You and I met when you came out to Syracuse, and I don't know if you remember this, but you and I were supposed to do our first interview before you got to Syracuse. And we had scheduled stuff, and I think you had to change it, I had to change it. And then when we were supposed to do it, my dog Lily had some type of a thing that like resembled a seizure. And so we didn't get to do the interview. And then we didn't reconnect until I physically saw you on campus for, I think, fall ball. So, I mean, do you remember that? That like we were originally
Yep.
supposed to cross paths, and my dog ended up having this emergency thing. I had to take her to the vet. So we were supposed to talk even before we talked.
I think I do remember that. I'm sorry about the dog.
Yeah,
Is he all
Lily.
right now?
Yeah, Lily's good. She's been awesome.
Got she all right?
Yeah,
Good,
she's great. Thank you for
good.
asking. But,
Yeah, I do remember that.
you and I had the opportunity to talk again. And I was like, you
Yeah.
know what? I wanted to talk with you. I wanted to give it a shot. I didn't know why we hadn't reconnected. And we met on the field in August at Syracuse, and I didn't know what to expect. and we ended up having a conversation about faith, about God, about the fact that you were bitter, about the fact that this was hard, about the fact that it tested your faith, that you were building your faith with God. And so when we actually finally got to speak to each other man to man, our entire relationship on and off the air began with faith, began with God, began with adversity, and how you were working through it at the time.
100%.
And I
It
love
was an amazing conversation.
And I'd love to go back to that because something that you felt and I felt from that conversation kind of bonded us forever at that point.
Was 100%.
So what do you remember of that moment when we got to talk? Because, I don't, there's no NeapoliDANS if there isn't that moment. So what was it that kind of spoke to you? I remember walking away going, okay, I didn't really expect to have that conversation, but I'm happy that I did. What did you remember from it?
I remember you asking me like just my mindset through everything and all the things I've been through and how I got to that moment. And yeah, I just brought up my faith and just how important it is to me, and just never giving up, man. Believing, never giving up and believing and working, hard work and faith. I got it tatted on my shoulder. It's just the recipe to everything, and it's the only reason I'm sitting here talking to you right now. Um, and yeah, that was a touching conversation. I remember that, and I remember walking off the field and just being like, just feeling really good about myself, just feeling like I'm exactly where I need to be, like I'm on my way.
Well, and from that, we talk about from Michigan to Syracuse with Love being the title of this inaugural episode of NeapoliDANS with Dan Villari and myself, Dan Tortora. How did you come to that conclusion, come to that decision after 2020 when you didn't appear in any games? 2021, we saw you out there in 4 games. The team won the Big Ten championship, reached the college football playoff. You made your collegiate debut against Western Michigan on September 4th of 2021. You carried the ball 3 times, 11 yards in that game. And then you also appeared against Northern Illinois, Wisconsin, and Maryland and completed 1 of 3 passes, 26 yards, carried the ball twice for 14 yards against Maryland, which was on November 20th of 2021. Then you decided to come to Syracuse. So after spending 2 years at Michigan, what was it that made you say, because this was like the ushering in of the transfer portal time as well. So what made you say, hey, I'm going to try this thing out. I don't have to sit out a season. I can go wherever I want to go, and there's no penalty. What made you say, I have to leave Michigan?
First off, JJ McCarthy was there, and he was going to be the guy. They had plans for him, and we obviously know he's an unbelievable player. So I saw that, and I knew that they wanted him to play the following season. And I was sitting in the hotel room with my roommate Alan Bowman,
Yeah.
who transferred to Oklahoma State, and he was like, dude, you got to go play somewhere. Like you're hurdling people in practice, running through people. Like you gotta go show that somewhere else. Like let's be honest, he was straight up with me. This is not You're not gonna play here. And I was like, you're right, man. And I took his advice, and he basically just said, you have to go play now. Like don't wait. And so I took his advice, and I wanted to be a little closer to home. I had enough of the Midwest.
Hmm.
Love it, but had enough of it. Need to go see my fellow Italians like Dan Tortora. And yeah, Syracuse was the first one to call.
So you jump in the portal.
Oh,
Yeah,
and
go ahead.
real quick,
Yeah,
Syracuse, so crazy because Syracuse has been my dream school forever,
really.
forever.
I
Yeah,
didn't
and they
even
didn't
know
even
that.
they nobody knows. They barely recruited me in high school. They didn't even recruit me at all. And since I was in middle school, I told my quarterback coach, he said, "Where do you want to play?" And I said, Syracuse. He said, you're going to play at Syracuse. I said, all right, let's go. And every day we just had that in our head, like, I'm going to play at Syracuse. I'm going to play at Syracuse. And then I played at Michigan. So I was like, this is, this is even better. But then I end up back in my dream school. So it's pretty crazy.
Why were they your dreams? I mean, we'll get into this in the next episode, but just a little bit. Why were they your dream school, Syracuse?
Eric Dungy, hurdling people, trucking dudes, being like Superman. I watched him and he was my favorite and I loved it. And I love New York. Like that's, we're New York's team. So I saw myself as Eric Dungy and I was like that's I remember looking at his stalking his Instagram page when I was a little kid and he was like jumping in Green Lakes off like the little cliff there. And I was like, this Green Lakes place looks unbelievable. Like this is beautiful. And like I remember that exactly. And I was like, man, I want to play at Syracuse.
Did you ever go to Green Lakes once you got up here?
Yeah, and then I went there and I was like, the first time I went there, I was like, it's beautiful, but then, there was no cliffs to jump off or anything.
Right.
They don't let you jump off it anymore.
So Michigan to Syracuse. You said Syracuse. So you get in the portal. You said Syracuse was first.
Yeah.
So did that mean something to you that they came to? I mean, yes, you said they were your dream school, but did it also have meaning that they were the first one to reach out to you in the portal and then who reached out to you? So did it have special meaning that Syracuse was first and who was the coach that reached out?
It was Jason Beck.
Okay.
Jason Beck reached out. He also knew one of my coaches at Michigan well, so they got on the phone and he pitched me to Jason Beck. And then there was a bunch of I remember FCS head coaches like calling me straight to calling straight up calling my phone
Yeah.
and just out of nowhere I picked up and they'd be like, "Hey, this is Coach so and so from Bowling Green." And I just remember being like they would always say like, "Are you thinking about the FCS route or are you still trying to go Power Five?" And I'd always tell them like, "Coach, I really appreciate you but that's my vision is Power Five. But thank you for looking into me and giving me an opportunity." But yeah, that's how it went. I just committed to Syracuse
Was so did
within 2 weeks, not even.
so was it like, hey, this is my dream school and they're calling me? Or was it like, hey, they were the first to call me that really had meaning for you?
No, it was more, this is my dream school. Like, I don't need anywhere else. This is what I'm very interested in.
So from Michigan to Syracuse with love, hindsight 2020, would you change the road that God put you on?
Can't. That's his road. I thought about it, but at the end of the day, you can't change his destiny for myself. So, no, I wouldn't change it.
Well, this is Just Mere episode one, the inaugural episode of NeapoliDANS with these two Italians, Dan Villari and myself, Dan Tortora. Villari, we will be tracking through these months to the NFL draft in 2026. And of course, we have the opportunity to tell it in a special way, unlike anything we've ever done before on this broadcast, as we will be with you every other Wednesday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. And starting here with you on Wednesday, December 17th, 2025. We appreciate you for tuning in. And of course, you could find this in our archives as well. Dan, final note here from you. What are you most looking forward to with NeapoliDANS and the fact that we get to chronicle your story and make you the spotlight for many months here? Something we've 22 years in broadcasting plus, and I have talked to Syracuse players en route to the NFL draft, but I have never done a series quite like this with any Syracuse player ever. What are you most looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to just having an opportunity to tell my story and tell all the ups and downs and trials and tribulations and just inspire kids, man, and inspire young kids to, they can do whatever they put their mind to if they work hard and have faith. And yeah, looking forward to telling stories and having some laughs and talking to you, Dan.
Well, that coming from Dan Villari, 2026 NFL draft prospect. He does a lot of different things, folks, and you can definitely check out his film and, of course, find him on social media. NeapoliDANS coming to you every other Wednesday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, exclusively on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora worldwide. Dan Villari, I appreciate you, brother, as always.
Appreciate you, brother. Tune in next week.